episode of OWS Week is dedicated to the diverse voices that make up the protest movement. We got out and about to talk to people and get an idea of the wide range of grievances that motivate the dissenters to stay out, come rain or shine. And our interview segment is here as ever.
This is your moment of clarity from leadcamp.net.
When are we going to take these people and hold them accountable? When are we going to put America back on its feet? And how are we going to do that if we continue to suppress the 99% and support and give more trillions of dollars to the entitled 1%?
White rebel song, sing out loud all night long. Hang on, man, it won't be long. Worldwide rebel song.
In solidarity with our allies from other communities that have been part of these struggles for decades. The black community, the Latino community, the immigrant communities, the poor communities. And so I'd like to finish off with a chant, remembering the brother that got killed yesterday. His name is Marley Graham. We are all Marley Graham. We are all Marley Graham.
I occupy because I have been an activist for a long time, and I used to think that the government was somewhat responsive to things that I said and things that I cared about, and I don't think that's the truth any longer. I think the government responds only to money and not to citizens. I don't think they're in it. They don't think that they can get votes by acting properly. They think they don't need to act properly. They can just spend a lot of money on advertisements to make us think they're acting properly. But we're smarter than that. And I'm here because we're smarter than that.
With this nation's per capita, there's no reason why anybody should go hungry. Worldwide, 4,000 children leave us because of hunger and because of starvation issues. So, we're trying to, empower people by, putting food in their hands. And we can also, there's plenty of land, plenty of space that we can feed, everyone without having to poison the earth and pollute our rivers and streams. There are ways to do this. But unfortunately, nobody's going to do it unless it's us. We the people have to make those efforts because, the big corporations, big ag, they're not going to do that for you.
This is your moment of clarity from leadcamp.net. The media wants to know, is Occupy Wall Street really having any effect? No, it couldn't possibly be that the colossal power of the wealthy is being challenged by regular Americans. That's so un-American. Well, here's the proof that Occupy Wall Street is having an effect. It comes from Frank Luntz, the biggest Republican strategist out there. Luntz is responsible for such Orwellian tongue lashings as switching global warming to climate change because it sounded softer and cuddlier. Climate change sounds like something you can fix by rolling up the sleeves of your Snuggie. He changed the estate tax to the death tax. He came up with calling decreased pollution regulation the Clear Skies Initiative. I guess because it would be more clear that the skies are filled with nasty Say Clear Skies Initiative to yourself right now. Doesn't it taste a little like bull? Like, you can taste it. Well, anyway, last week, Luntz was at a closed-door meeting of the Republican Governors Association, to tell them not to say child labor anymore, but instead replace it with 9 to 5 child industrious behavior training. And he was asked about Occupy Wall Street. He said, and I quote, I'm scared to death of this anti-Wall Street effort. This is a guy who thinks global warming is a walk in a park. This is a guy who thinks loads of pollution in our skies is just a way to make better sunsets. So he's not scared easily, but he's scared to death of Occupy Wall Street. He then gave his audience advice on how to lie to the American public. He said, if we're seen as defenders of Wall Street, we have a problem. He told the audience to pretend to empathize with protesters. He suggested they say, I get it, a lot. So soon we're going to see all the Republicans going, you're all dirty hippie drug addicts, but I feel your pain. I get it. He also told the audience not to mention the middle class. I assume this is because if you mention the middle class, you remind people that there once was one. The GOP wants the thought of the middle class to disappear like a serial murderer burning the shoes of its victims, like the Chinese government ripping the Tiananmen Square pages out of the history books, like Forrest Whitaker clawing at the Battlefield Earth entry on his IMDb page. Luntz concluded by telling the crowd to never again refer to taxing the rich. Instead, call it taking from the rich, he said. You're damn right we want to take from the rich. We want to take back our futures. We want to take back the money they stole in a series of Wall Street scams built from lies, stacked on deceit, fabricated from forgeries, made out of bull that was out of the mouths of con artists. How about we play some of their word games? Stop calling it taxing the rich. Call it taking back our stolen property. Don't call it foreclosing on homes. Foreclosing is a banker's term designed to desensitize it. Call it stealing someone's home. Don't use the word bonuses. Replace it with end of the year blood money. And stop referring to it as a bailout. Refer to it as a heist. And for all of you fighting out there, just remember, these rich con artists are now saying in closed-door meetings that they're scared to death of Occupy Wall Street. As Charlie Sheen would say, we're winning.
Obama recently passed a bill supposedly offering aid to people in jeopardy of foreclosure or suffering from foreclosure. Basically, we see it as another issue where he's giving immunity and he's foregoing prosecuting people criminally liable for the acts that led to the foreclosure crisis. So we see a big problem in it. And I've noticed a trend in the Occupy movement across the country that seems to be focusing more on foreclosures and actually bringing aid to the people that are suffering the issues that we began protesting, which seems to be the economic injustices happening in America.
I occupy to make a statement about the unfair American government choosing money over people, the unfair laws that are out right now, and the government just, people stay in jail longer for stealing than they do for murder or rape. The people getting kicked out of their homes when we have plenty of homes to have everybody in. Just making a statement that land should be free. It's land. America didn't create it, and the land will outlive it, so we should be able to be wherever we want to be.
Well, the banks are the ones who are getting all of the assistance, and the banks are the ones who created the problem, and the banks are the ones cashing in on the homes that they collect. I mean, it's just all rigged in their favor, that when it goes bad, it goes for them, and they're the ones who turned it bad, and it goes. So there's no punishment, it's all just win-win while people are ending up on the streets.
I'm here to avoid the inevitable. The same analogy with Iraq is now happening with Iran. We're fearful that we're going to go to war unnecessarily and irresponsibly and unconstitutionally.
Well, I admire the organization Veterans for Peace, so I help them out every chance I get.
Okay. And why are you out here today protesting?
Well, because I'm against the insanity of war.
Okay.
And it is an insane action by all men that practice it.
No sanctions, no intervention, no assassination.
So what's the money supposed to represent, and why did you write Free Money, Slave of Wall Street on it?
Well, in many ways it's pretty obvious. I started doing this on April Fool's Day in 2009, and I've been spending this money ever since. It's a direct reference to the economic system of free markets and free trade, and it's also directly related to the economic meltdown that happened in 2008. The idea of everyone would get rich, they inflated the money supply, and then they cut it back.
Occupy Wall Street started on, first day was September 17th, 2011. I was there. Like many people, I've been waiting for that moment for years and years and years, all my life, because I was born in 1977, and I'm 35 years old, and my lifetime basically is the span of the free market ideology taking over everything in this country and spreading through the system of globalization all over the world. And I've seen people disempowered and exploited. I've seen strip malls put out all over the landscape. I've seen banks expand and CEOs make more and more money. And then in 2008, when the economy fell apart, you could just see that the way the country was constructed was falling apart, and the banks kept making money. So then you saw the contradiction.
Is going into a whole nother level. Young people are being involved, college campuses involved, churches are being involved, and so what you're going to see is not Occupy on the fringe, but it's coming to a kitchen table issue that every person is represented in Occupy.
Today we're going to arrest Carl Levin for co-sponsoring the NDAA, which takes the civil rights away from the people, so we're going to take him down.
That sounds like fun. Let's go inside.
I'm telling you, to fight back! To fight back! That you should fight back! That you should fight back! Power to the people! Power to the
Great news, folks. The Republicans and the Democrats in Congress and the White House finally came together and agreed on something. This is huge. These guys disagree on everything. Getting them to see eye to eye is like getting the Israelis and the Palestinians to do a trust fall together, or getting Eskimos and polar bears to play Jenga. I'm referring to the bill H.R. 347 that was signed by President Obama the other day and passed unanimously in the Senate, and 388-3 in the House. That's nearly every single lawmaker. The last time they agreed that closely on something, it was a bill raising monthly congressional pay to include a box of ding-dongs, 2 erotic cakes featuring Bonanza star Pernell Roberts, and a gentle yet inquisitive prostate exam every Tuesday. What did this magical, universally loved bill say? Well, many are calling it the anti-Occupy law because it allows the government to bring charges against Americans involved in many kinds of political protest at any location the Secret Service, quote, is or will temporarily be visiting. So basically, if the government wants to shut down a protest, they just send a couple of Secret Service down there to scratch their second, and then they start putting people in jail for a year or more. This is all lovely, except for that bitchy, bothersome document, the Constitution. I believe somewhere in the back it says, quote, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. That must have sucked when Congress found that out. To get that close to passing the bill and then shot down, it must have been like getting hired to rub baby oil on the contestants of Miss Universe before the bathing suit portion of the competition and then losing your hands in a freak cell phone exploding accident. Quick side note, why isn't baby oil more expensive? You figure they must have to process 5 or 6 of those little fellas just to get one bottle. So when Congress heard about that First Amendment thing, they must have been like, God damn it, that really f***ed up all our plans. That line in the Constitution says not to do exactly what we wanted to do. That's what they must have said, right? Right? They didn't just like pass it and then The president didn't just, like, sign it, right? But the bill doesn't stop there. I mean, when you have the entirety of Congress, with the exception of Ron Paul, agreeing on something, why not swing for the fences? The bill also says it could be a federal crime to protest near an event of, quote, national significance. Well, that's not vague at all. So you could be convicted of a federal crime and locked away for a year or more for the following things: marching outside the Democratic or Republican national conventions, yelling face corporate outside a barber shop where Mitt Romney is getting his ear hair trimmed, marching in front of the entrance of the New York Stock Exchange, sprinkling magic homosexual glitter on Rick Santorum, or even anyone near Rick Santorum, or even just making fun of his stupid sweater vest, or going to the gates of the White House and demanding the president read the Constitution, you know, if he gets a chance in his free time. Well, if Congress gets to stomp on the Bill of Rights like this, I want to do it too. I want to bring back cruel and unusual punishment, and then we could demand that every man or woman who voted for the anti-protest law or signed it from the Oval Office be tied up in the town square naked for a week, while everyone who wants to gets to throw fire ants and bumblebees at their naughty bits. Deal? That's your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net.
I guess one of the things about Occupy, and especially that I've been having a lot of conversations with people, is about where it is now and where it's going. A lot of people often say, like, it's in hibernation, and so that when the springtime comes that people will come back out. And whether I don't specifically have the answer to that question, I know that what had occurred with the Occupy movement was a lot of new people sort of hit the activist scene. And now you have people who had never had experience organizing, had never done anything like this, sort of dedicated for the sort of lifelong pursuit of activism and generally making the world a better place. And that's something that I find particularly beautiful about the movement.
I'm often asked why I work at Occupy Wall Street, and the answer is quite simple. In fact, you can help me with the answer. Let's count together to 4. Ready? And 1, 2, 3, 4. In our world, every 4 seconds, a child dies from causes related to poverty. Could be malnutrition, no access to medical care, many things. But we live in a post-scarcity world. We're able to provide food, clothing, shelter, medical care to everyone. So this poverty isn't naturally caused, it's manufactured. So when I said and, a child died. When you and I said 4, a child died. And in the minute it's taken me to explain to you why we counted from 1 to 4, 15 more children died. So when someone asks me, why am I at Occupy Wall Street? My answer is always, let's you and I count to 4.
I occupy because our politicians have set our Constitution on fire, and we need to extinguish that. Greedy psychopaths are stealing every ounce of wealth and humanity from the whole global civilization through their corporations and their greed. And our society has been corrupted with concepts of racism, sexism, and oppression that are used to divide humanity, always has been, and I am here to alleviate some of those issues, to fight back and save the planet.
Just state your name and then just talk.
Okay, into the camera or
yeah,
to you?
Whatever.
Okay. My name is Monica, and something that I've been thinking about lately with Occupy, since I've been arrested 2 times in a row at a Bank of America action, is how much we're being targeted for even the most meaningless things. Like, I was arrested for singing, for trying to cross the street, and for walking on the sidewalk and singing. And this is just complete profiling, and we're under attack, and they know that spring training is coming, and we're getting strong again, and we're growing like the spring flowers, and we're going to be out on the street, and they're just trying to demoralize us as much as they can, and it's not going to happen. So we're going to stay up, we're going to spring up, and it's going to be great.
My name's Paul Talbot. One of the reasons, or one of the issues I believe
that's facing Occupy right now is the issue that most people have no idea where Occupy is or how to find Occupy. If you're interested in getting involved in Occupy Wall Street in New York City, you can always go to the website nycga.net and get involved. Find a working group, find a time, come down to 60 Wall Street and talk to us, talk to people, and get involved in some way. There's many different working groups, there's many different aspects of the movement to get involved in. So if you want to get involved in any nonviolent or any other aspects of the movement, definitely check out the website nycga.net and come down and join us and let your voice be heard.
That movement, partially because of the work we moved to amend, and so many organizations that are getting the message that they're not going to get anything done until we change this inherent corrupt aspect of our system, have marshaled their forces, and the Occupy movement has become a conduit to and a venue for talking about this corruption. And so folks like Move to Amend that are really, in my mind, setting the bar for the critique that corporations are not persons, money is property, not speech, and constitutional rights are for people only. So tomorrow we're going to debut the 28th Amendment. It's our next constitutional amendment. Those stupid, business people say, believe, achieve, conceive, believe, achieve. Just because it's so corny when they say it, it's actually kind of true. Let's visualize a 28th Amendment. So we created a 28th Amendment for people to see. We're going to bring it out across front and juxtapose it with the Supreme Court. We're going to have a really fun song and dance number with some corrupt justices. One of these things is not like the other. Trying to identify the difference between actual human beings and corporate persons. And the reason we're using that humor and that music, because it's unifying. It appeals to these truths that we find to be self-evident, and in order to grow from the power we have to the power we need. And so we'll be out there, just like folks were out there today doing the big U.S. Supreme Coke. We worked with Other 98 to do that action. And people will be out there the day after we're there. And we want to escalate this conflict. We want to escalate this fight. But we want to do it in a way that's sympathetic and draws people to our cause and is consistent with our deepest principles.